I was in labor for 17 hours alone because my husband took his mom to spa instead. When I called him screaming from the delivery room, she answered and said, "Some women just aren't built for motherhood." He texted me, "Grow up." I named the baby without him. A month later, I sent them a video that made them both cry. "My name's Rachel, I'm 33, and I live in Spokane, Washington." I've never told this story in full because for a long time, I couldn't say it out loud without shaking. But the way my life got ripped in half, the way I had to put myself back together with no one's help, that's the kind of pain that doesn't just sit quietly. And it didn't end when the baby came. It ended when I made sure they both felt it. I met Kyle when I was 26. He was 2 years older, charming in the way that makes you ignore warning signs. Everyone said he was a mama's boy, but I just thought he loved his family. I didn't think that meant I'd spend my adult life competing with a woman who hated me from the second I walked into her house. Her name's Joyce, and she smiled like a politician, tight-lipped, polite in front of others, but she had a tongue like a knife. At first it was little things, telling Kyle my food was bland, telling me I looked tired all the time, bringing up his exes every chance she got. But once we got married, it was constant. Joyce had an opinion about everything: our house, our money, what I wore, even what brand of toilet paper we bought. And Kyle, he always took her side. Always. He said I was too sensitive, that she meant well. I wish I'd left then. But I was stupid. I thought if I got pregnant, things would get better, that he'd change. I got pregnant a year and a half after our wedding. Kyle was thrilled at first. He touched my belly all the time and even cried when we heard the heartbeat. But the moment I started throwing up daily, the mood changed. He started sleeping in the guest room because I snored like a freight train and said my hormones were too much. And Joyce, she told me, and I quote, "Pregnancy is no excuse to be lazy." I worked until the day I gave birth. I was in my 3rd trimester when the fights got worse. He started coming home later, blaming work. I checked his phone once. Not for cheating, I never thought he'd cheat, but to see if he was venting about me. He wasn't. Instead, I found dozens of texts between him and his mother. "Kyle, she's whining again. Just 'cause her feet are swollen." Joyce. Weak women use pregnancy as an excuse. I raised 3 kids with no complaints. Kyle. She's not cut out for this. I confronted him, but he turned it back on me. Said if I hadn't snooped, I wouldn't be upset. That I was making problems where there were none. I let it go because I was tired and my doctor warned me my blood pressure was high. I wanted to make it to the delivery without stress. That was my mistake. My due date was May 8th. On the 6th, I started having contractions. They were light at first, about 15 minutes apart. I told Kyle, and he shrugged and said, "Let me know when it's serious." Then he told me he had plans with his mom that afternoon. Some early Mother's Day spa thing. I thought he was joking. "No," I said. "You're not going anywhere. I'm having contractions. They're not close together." He said, "It's not labor yet." I stood in front of the door, holding my belly, and begged him to stay. But he brushed past me, said, "Stop being dramatic," and left. I sat down and cried on the floor for 10 minutes, then called my OB. She told me to come in. By the time I got to Sacred Heart Medical Center, the contractions were 5 minutes apart. I was in labor, 17 hours, alone, no husband, no support. The nurse called him 3 times. No answer. I texted. I called. At hour 9, I called again from the delivery bed. I was crying. The pain was unbearable. I had back labor and I couldn't breathe. When someone picked up the phone, it wasn't Kyle. It was Joyce. Her voice was cool and sharp. "He's unavailable, Rachel." Honestly, some women just aren't built for motherhood. Screaming won't help the baby. I froze. "Put Kyle on," I said. "He's getting a facial," she replied, then hung up. He texted me 15 minutes later. "Grow up. You'll be fine. Stop trying to ruin Mother's Day for her." That was it. My body went cold. And something snapped in me. Something died. I gave birth to my daughter at 3:42 a.m. on May 7th. Her hair was jet black, and she had the tiniest hands. The nurse asked what name we'd picked, and I said, "It's just me now." I named her Liana Grace. He'd wanted Michelle after his mom. I didn't put his name on the birth certificate, and I didn't tell him she was born. For 3 days, I stayed in that hospital room, holding her, feeding her, crying quietly when she slept. I told the nurses no visitors. I told them her father had abandoned us during labor. One of them cried with me. When I got home, Kyle was there. He looked nervous. I didn't say anything. I just walked past him with the baby. He said, "You had her? You didn't call me." "You were busy," I said. He reached for her, and I pulled away. "You don't get to touch her," I said. "You left me alone. She came into this world without you. You don't get to play dad now." He looked like I'd slapped him, but I didn't care. He followed me to the nursery and saw her name painted on the wall. "You changed her name?" "No. I gave her one." "You're being a B*TCH," he spat. "And you're a coward," I said. We didn't speak for 3 weeks. I filed for a restraining order after Joyce came to my house and started yelling at me through the window that I was trying to steal her granddaughter. But I wasn't done. A month after Liana was born, I made a video. I sat down, held her in my arms, and recorded a message. I said, "This is your granddaughter. She was born on May 7th. You missed it, not because of an emergency, not because of traffic, but because a massage and a pedicure were more important. Kyle, you left your wife in labor alone, and you sent your mother to mock me while I was screaming in pain. You don't deserve her, and you will never know her unless a court orders it." Then I flipped the camera to Liana sleeping in my arms. "You did this to yourself." I sent it to both of them. 2 hours later, Kyle showed up sobbing on my doorstep. Joyce was behind him, makeup running down her face. I didn't open the door. Instead, I stood behind the glass and said, "You wanted a Mother's Day? This is what motherhood looks like." Then I closed the curtains. After the video, I expected silence. I thought they'd be too embarrassed to show their faces again. I thought maybe, just maybe, Kyle would grow up or his mom would back off. I was wrong. 3 days after I sent that video, I got a letter from a lawyer. Kyle was suing me for joint custody. He claimed I was emotionally unstable, that I'd denied him his right to be a father, and that my actions were cruel and vindictive. He wanted 50-50 custody and corrective name adjustment. He was suing me to rename my daughter. I almost dropped the letter. My hands are shaking so bad, I couldn't even finish the first page. I had to sit down. It felt like someone had ripped the floor out from under me. I hadn't even healed from the stitches yet. My back still hurt from the epidural. And here he was, suing me for not letting him back into a life he walked out of. I called my friend Cassie, a paralegal, and she came over that night. She sat at my kitchen table while I nursed Liana and read the whole thing word by word. "He's serious," she said, "and he's trying to paint you like you're dangerous." "I didn't do anything," I said. "I know," she said, "but he's got a lawyer and money. And worse, a manipulative mom. Cassie helped me get a family attorney. His name was Mark Peterman, ex-military, no nonsense. He listened to my story with his jaw clenched and then said, "We're not just going to fight this. We're going to expose it." That's when things started turning. I gave Mark everything. Screenshots of Kyle's texts, the call log from the hospital, the voicemail Joyce left after I filed the restraining order, where she called me a womb with an attitude, the birth certificate, the hospital report confirming he never showed up. Mark built a timeline. "Let him take this to court," he said. "We'll bury him." But Kyle wasn't done trying to break me down. He started showing up at my pediatric appointments, claiming he had a right to see his daughter's progress. I had to ask the clinic to put a note in Liana's file barring him from entry. He sent flowers with notes like, "You're keeping her from her family." He posted on Facebook about how I was punishing a man for one mistake. And Joyce, she started showing up at my church, not to worship, to spread rumors. People started looking at me different, like I'd cheated or lied or faked the whole thing. One woman came up to me after service and said, "His mother said you screamed like a banshee and wouldn't let them in the room." I didn't even try to explain. I just packed up Liana's diaper bag and left. But the worst part, Kyle's lawyer found a judge who was sympathetic to reunification cases. We were ordered to mediation. I had to sit across from him in a cold conference room while he cried crocodile tears and said, "I just want to be a dad. She's weaponizing my daughter against me." I kept my mouth shut, but inside I was boiling. Then he slipped. He mentioned how Joyce already bought a crib for Liana. That's when the mediator paused. "Wait," she said. "Did you say already bought a crib?" "Yeah," he said, too fast. "For when we get her on weekends." "You're assuming you'll win joint custody?" she asked. He stuttered. "Well, no, I just meant we're hopeful." She made a note in her folder. After that, her tone with him changed. I could feel it, but I wasn't waiting for court to be the only revenge. I had something else. I started digging through old iCloud backups. Back when Kyle still cared, we used to share an iCloud photo album. He never deleted it, and he never realized it was still linked to my email. In that album, screenshots of texts, videos, pictures. One video in particular caught my eye. From a night back in February, 3 months before I gave birth. Joyce was over. Kyle was drunk. They were mocking my baby name suggestions, calling them ghetto and trashy. Joyce said, "I hope the baby comes out with his genes. If it looks like her, we're screwed." I screen recorded the whole thing, and then I sent it to Mark. He added it to the evidence folder and said, "We'll let this simmer." In the meantime, I started keeping a journal. Every text, every interaction, every panic attack, every moment of sleep deprivation, while Kyle was off golfing or posting thirst traps on Instagram with captions like, "Single dads rise up." He hadn't changed. He hadn't learned. And he was about to find out what real consequences felt like. At the next hearing, the judge asked both parties to submit character references. Kyle submitted 3. One from Joyce, one from his boss, who I later found out was sleeping with his cousin, and one from his gym trainer. I submitted 6, 2 from my OBGYN and nurses, 1 from Cassie, 1 from our former marriage counselor, 1 from my church group leader, and 1 from my neighbor who'd driven me to the hospital. Every single one told the truth. That he left, that I begged him to stay, that I had witnesses, that Liana was healthy and loved because I did everything alone. And then Mark played the February video in front of the judge. I watched Kyle's face go white. Joyce stood up and shouted, "That's taken out of context," and got asked to leave the room. The judge looked at Kyle for a long time and said, "You seem to be more concerned with control than parenthood." And that was the moment I saw it, the shift. The power moved to me. After that hearing, everything changed. For a while, I thought it was over. That the judge's warning would scare Kyle off. That maybe he'd realize he was losing and just back down quietly. But people like Kyle and Joyce, they don't know how to lose. They only know how to scheme harder. 2 weeks after the court hearing, I started getting anonymous calls. At first, I thought they were spam. But the 3rd time I picked up, a woman's voice whispered, "Slut," then hung up. The next one called me a baby trapping whore. Another told me to go back where I came from. I called my attorney. He traced the numbers, burner phones. Can't be tied to Kyle, not directly. But we both knew what this was. Joyce. I tried to stay calm. For Liana, I rocked her and told myself it would pass. But then someone left a review on my small Etsy shop. I make custom baby blankets. It read, "Would not recommend. Woman is unstable and abusive. Do your research before buying." My heart dropped. That business was how I paid for diapers, formula, rent. That was mine. I called Etsy. They took it down, but warned me that if I got more like it, my shop could be suspended. So now they were trying to ruin my income, too. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just held my daughter tighter and made a plan. I sent an email to Mark. Subject: We go public. Mark called me back in 10 minutes. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. He's attacking my life. I'm done hiding. So we filed a new claim. Harassment. Defamation. We requested a full court order. No contact. No visitation. No more mediation. And then I took it one step further. I wrote a letter to Joyce's country club. I sent them the screenshots of her texts, the voicemail, and the video from February. The one where she laughed about my baby's name and made a joke about me, sweating like livestock. Country clubs love their reputation. 3 days later, Joyce's membership was revoked. That same week, Kyle lost a client at his real estate firm. Why? His client's wife followed my Etsy account and saw my pinned post. The one I wrote late at night, after too many breakdowns and too much silence. My name is Rachel. I was left in labor for 17 hours while my husband took his mother to a spa. She answered the phone while I was screaming. He told me to grow up. I named my daughter without him. And now he's suing me for the rights he gave up. But I'm fighting back. For her. I didn't name names. But people figured it out. Spokane isn't that big. But then came the biggest twist. And I didn't see it coming. One morning, I got a knock at my door. A girl. Couldn't have been older than 21. Long dark hair. Red eyes like she'd been crying. I thought she was lost. But then she asked, "Are you Rachel?" "Yes," I said, confused. I'm sorry to bother you. I think I need to tell you something." I invited her inside, sat her down, made her tea, while Liana slept in the bassinet. And then she dropped the bomb. "I'm pregnant. With Kyle's baby." I didn't speak. I didn't know he was married until I saw your story. He told me he was divorced. Said you were crazy. That you took the baby and ran. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She looked so small. So scared. I'm 14 weeks. I don't want anything from him. I thought you should know. You're not alone. Her name was Bailey. She met Kyle at his gym. He flirted. Said he was a single dad in pain. She fell for it. She said he was charming at first, then demanding, controlling. He told her what to wear, how to post on Instagram. Same patterns. She showed me texts. "Kyle, don't get fat. I already have a baby with a whale." Kyle. My ex lied in court. She's obsessed with me. Kyle. If you screw this up, I'll make you regret it. I almost vomited, but instead, I took a breath. I looked Bailey in the eyes and said, "You don't have to be afraid. Not anymore." She broke down sobbing, and that's when I knew. I wasn't just fighting for Liana anymore. I was fighting for every woman he'd stepped on, every lie he told, every scare tactic Joyce used. And now, for a girl too young to have seen it coming, I called Mark the next day. "We're adding pattern of abuse to the case." Bailey gave a sworn statement. She even agreed to testify. And then Mark filed for a protective order for me and Liana. Then came the day everything boiled over. Kyle showed up at my house again, this time banging on the door, screaming, "You ruined my life. You took my daughter and turned everyone against me. You think anyone cares about your side? You'll regret this." I had my phone recording the whole time. Liana was in my arms. I stayed behind the door. Calm. Silent. Then he said it. "I should have let you bleed out on that table." The silence after that sentence could have crushed a mountain. I sent the video to Mark. Then to the court. Then I emailed it to Bailey. And finally I sent it to Joyce. She called me the next day sobbing. I had no idea he said that. "Rachel, I'm sorry. He was raised better than this, but I cut her off. You raised this." Then I hung up. The day the final court decision came down was cloudy. Fitting, I guess. The kind of gray sky that presses down on your shoulders. I sat in that courtroom holding my breath, my hands clenched around the edge of my chair, feeling my heartbeat in my ears. Kyle was across from me, wearing a cheap suit and that fake sad expression he always put on for show. Joyce wasn't there. Not anymore. Not after what I sent her. She hadn't spoken to Kyle in 3 weeks. I'd heard through town that she moved in with her sister in Idaho and told people her son was not the man she thought he was. I didn't care what she thought. I cared about what the judge was about to say. The decision didn't come with drama. Just words. Plain, simple, powerful words. Given the documented evidence of abandonment during childbirth, recorded threats, patterns of harassment, and the petitioner's demonstrated commitment to the child's well-being, the court is granting full legal and physical custody to the mother, Rachel and Hargrove. The respondent, Kyle Carter Hargrove, will have no visitation until such a time as he completes an extended psychological evaluation, a 52-week parenting and anger management program, and shows measurable, documented rehabilitation. In addition, the court is issuing a 5-year restraining order protecting both the mother and child. The court also recognizes the legitimacy of the child's given name as filed on the original birth certificate. Petition for name change is denied. I couldn't breathe for a second. Then Mark touched my arm and nodded. "You did it," he said. But I didn't cry. Not until later. Not until I got in the car, looked back at the car seat behind me, and saw Liana sleeping, one little hand curled by her cheek. We were free. A week later, Kyle's real estate license was suspended, not just because of the court case, but because someone from the firm forwarded the threatening video he made outside my house. The board ruled it was a clear violation of ethical conduct. Then his boss let him go. Word got around. Spokane isn't that big. He tried working under another agency, under a different name. That lasted 2 weeks. Then someone linked the court transcripts to their public Facebook page. I never touched a thing. People did it for me. One by one, his life fell apart. Clients dropped him. His gym removed his profile from their trainer list. And Bailey, she moved in with her aunt in Missoula, sent me a text that said, "Thank you for believing me. I had no one. You saved me from making the worst mistake of my life. I want to be better for this baby, like you are for yours." I still check on her. Every Sunday we text. She's naming her son Noah. As for Joyce, she emailed me once. A long apology. Pages of excuses mixed with guilt. I never responded. I had nothing left to say to her. Liana turned 1 this past May. We had a small party, just me, Cassie, our neighbors, and a few women from my church. I made the cake myself, a simple one with pink frosting and little white flowers. She smashed her face into it and laughed so loud I swear the walls shook. That night, after I put her down, I sat in the nursery. I looked around at the photos on the wall, the handmade mobile, the blanket I'd sewn during the worst months of my life. And I cried, but not the way I used to. Not out of pain, out of peace. I'd survived. I didn't just get through it. I burned it all down and built something better from the ashes. They tried to break me. He thought I'd come crawling back. She thought she could outmother me. Instead, they lost everything. And I gained the only thing that ever really mattered. Her. My daughter. My Liana Grace.